Good morning and a warm welcome to Styrelseakademin Stockholm's Morning Sofa. So your ears are working perfectly and there's nothing wrong with your morning coffee. I am speaking English. And that is due to the fact that one of our guests today is from the United States. So we're going to hold this whole session in English. But since I want you to partake in this by using the chat function, feel free to ask the question in Swedish if you want to, because I'll just translate it. I don't want anything holding you back when it comes to interacting with our guests today. So with me today, we have Meg, Per-Ola and Christian. Beth, sorry. Beth, could you start by introducing yourselves a bit more? Start with you, Beth.
Sure. Thanks, Charlotte. We're really happy to be here, and I'll be Meg if you would like me to be, if that's easier. But my name is Beth Topolovsky. I'm the CEO for Spark Group, and Spark is a consulting company that specializes in corporate turnarounds and assessments of small and medium-sized tech companies. And I'm originally from Silicon Valley. I was working for Cisco System when I accepted an assignment in Stockholm to turn around an acquisition of Cisco's. Spark is headquartered in Stockholm. I live here. My Swedish is insanely embarrassing, but thank you very much for speaking English today. But my colleagues, Christian, Menke, and Per-Ola are here as well today. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yep. Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Christian Menke, and I work as a turnaround specialist here at Spark. I bring experiences from executive positions in sales and marketing and also as a CEO. I've held a number of board positions and also coached some board members in the past. The last 20 years or so, I've been working with turnaround projects of smaller and medium-sized companies. Per-Ola.
Yes, thank you, Christian. Yes, Per-Ola Andersson, partner with Spark, turnaround specialist, 35 years experience in Nordic and international product management, business management, working both based out of Sweden and based out of Silicon Valley and based out of Netherlands. I've been doing turnaround projects together with Beth and Spark for the past 4 years, and it's really thrilling to be here at the Morgonsoffan.
Yeah, we're happy to have you because the topic of the day is why do transformations fail? And to start off, I think it would be a good time to define what we mean by transformations, because that is a term that is widely used. Are we talking about transforming certain areas of a business, or are we talking about a whole company turnover? Or if you don't do all these things in time, eventually you only end up with a limited amount of options going forward, which reconstruction could actually be a sad outcome. But Beth, could you please enlighten us a bit more of what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, the terminologies are quite distinct and sometimes interchangeable. And you mentioned transformations, turnarounds, and reconstructions. And yes, those are the three categories, and they have very different characteristics of each of them. And the industry tends to use transformations and turnarounds interchangeably. But we like to think of transformations as changes that an organization makes that are incremental, like installing an ERP system or a new development process. And turnarounds are really full company transformations. So where every functional area in a company is affected and has an imperative to really improve their ways of working to reach the company goals. And Spark has a process that we call product-led transformation, which is the turnaround that is working throughout the company that's focused on the product. So it's full company changes. So you'll hear us using the word interchangeably from time to time, but really when we say transformations, it's really a full company turnaround. And but at the same time, turnarounds, it's a huge business in the US. And they have different degrees of turnarounds, and it also does include like deep cost cuttings and selling off products and selling off divisions and right sizing organizations as well. And reconstructions are similar to bankruptcy proceedings, where the company goes into receivership and works with a legal team to right side the company. So those, and even reconstructions and bankruptcies are slightly different in Sweden and the US in terminology wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when is a good time to start then? I mean, what situations could actually benefit from what you call this whole company turnover?
Yeah, companies go through their life cycles, and a typical situation where you would see a turnaround implemented on a company is where they're in that 10 to 15 year in their life cycle, and things have just stalled. It's plateaued, nothing is happening. So the product is well received in the company, but yet the company isn't developing. You know, the things are somewhat flatlining. And it's really easy for the board to see that the market is growing, but the company isn't. And usually at this point, profitability is starting to decline. So it's really that stage in the life cycle where the curve starts to turn. And another situation that might be really good for a board to bring in a turnaround is a situation where the board has had multiple CEOs and now you have an interim and still things aren't progressing. So that might indicate that the situation is deeper than the CEO. And so that might be also a good time to bring in or to implement a turnaround. The issues may be more systemic than just at the CEO level. And then a third case that could be a good situation is, it's a little bit harder to describe, but it's sort of a sense that the board has that the company has just gone down the wrong path and things are just not moving. And if I can just mention two situations where transformations or turnarounds really aren't the best process to apply. And that's in early stage companies. And I know that there's so many companies that are booming right now in the early stage area. But if the board and investors feel like things are just not moving with an early stage company, a turnaround isn't really the best application or the best procedure to take, because early stage companies have really different challenges. Their functional areas aren't developed yet. The product usually isn't developed. Maybe the market isn't ready. So that isn't the best place to apply a turnaround. And the second one, which as well is a little bit hard to describe, but it's more like the market has dried up for the product. And a
which
reconstruction.
We see a lot of, which we actually see a lot of situations of now in COVID, when the whole world has changed its behavior.
Exactly. So, is the market still there? So that's the big question that we ask ourselves at Spark is like, is there still a market for the product? And if so, then there's a lot we can do. But I think moreover, it's like the early stage companies, what I would recommend that boards and investors do in early stage is bring in a new CEO and really get the team moving in the right direction, product strategy and so forth.
No, it's a good point, with the early stage companies, because I guess everything is moving so fast these days, and even owners and board members, we want results yesterday.
Exactly.
But then just to be a bit more understanding that it is an early stage company and maybe not all the functions are there yet in the company, like support functions, and just takes time to enter the market, I guess.
Exactly.
So it doesn't have to be anything wrong.
Right, exactly. And there's lots of things to investigate in the early stage. And at the same time, everybody's got to be open and understanding that maybe the product isn't a good fit. Yeah. So that's the investors and board will have the best judgment on that. Yeah. Absolutely.
That is also a skill.
Yes.
Yeah. But from a board perspective then, I mean, you've touched upon it slightly already. You sit there in the boardroom and you feel this frustration, you know, and you're not an early stage company, you know, what how would you then identify that? I think we should call Beth and get a turnover process started.
Yeah, well, you know, it's really difficult sitting in a board seat to understand all the things that are happening inside of a company to really judge, is it time for a turnaround? But some of the telltale signs that I can list, of course, it's when sales and profitability are constantly declining, and the explanations of why are very weak. There's not a really good sense of why can't they get the sales and profitability back up. And we also hear board members tell us that a lot of their companies bring in, you know, potential new customers into the board presentations, but they never see those customers actually turn into sales. You know, that's a frequent, you know, a lot of good discussion about sales meetings and opportunities, but they don't turn into sales. And also you tend to see management teams miss opportunities, and the reason or the solution is always just around the corner. So it's always, you know, delaying and you know, a lot of companies and a lot of boards just don't have the time to wait for these solutions to actualize. And also, I think one of the last things that you can see as a board member is that strategies just aren't implemented as promised. You know, you have a lot of discussion about in the strategic days, but the actions just don't get implemented. So it's difficult, but I think these are some of the telltale signs that can indicate that something needs to change.
Yeah, and also what I assume could be the so-called CEO filter as well. You know, the CEO probably feels that he or she is not doing a good job, and maybe feel frustrated about not getting their team get their arms around their team properly, and then trying to like justify things towards the board. And it's
yeah, that's right. And that's why the board has got to ask the good questions, you know, to the CEO, and to work through that filter. And I think so many CEOs just have great intentions about presenting what they can, but it's the responsibility of the board to really weave through those filters and to detect if the CEO might need some support.
We have a comment from the chat, which is like, so it's really all about people then, isn't it?
It's also about the systems inside the company. Is the product fully developed? Is the company really actualizing the product values? Is it communicating the product well enough in the marketing and sales? So it is way more than just the people. So at Spark, we like to talk about the systems and the people. And the systems are very much about the mechanics of running a company. So that is very much a part, you know, are the organizations working as they should? Do you have the sales material that you need to sell? Do you have the, you know, the website up? Do you have the communication going well on the website? Are you doing your announcement? All these kind of things are very systematic within a company that must be alive and productive and moving the company forward.
Yeah. So it's about having the structures in place and then hire the best people.
Absolutely.
Because if you just hire the best people and don't have any structure, they won't be able to flourish, would they?
Right. And knowing how to really promote the product values and making sure that you are solving your customer's problem. So those are more than just the people.
Perola that we'll speak a bit later says that he will address some of this in his section. So we will hear more about the people later on. But let's move on to Christian. Okay, so you called in the SWAT team. What can you expect then from a turnaround?
Yeah, well, of course, that depends a bit about the case and also what the investor wants to do with the company and wants to happen with the company. But for sure, you should be able to expect some general things like more predictable sales, a stronger sales pipe over time. You should also expect that company goals are better defined and also being met more often. Also, we have seen that you get a stronger and more valuable market position that's also more sustainable. And actually, if you do a turnaround project in the right way, you will have a very much more energized and productive staff. And as a sort of last one, but absolutely not least, is the increased valuation of the stock and the whole company.
Yeah, I'm happy that you say that you can expect a more energized and motivated staff, but I guess that's after the process, because when you're in the middle of it, change is a bit scary and it just feels like everyone is in a vacuum cleaner. But there is something good waiting at the end of the journey.
Yeah, and we actually talk about the importance of working with the culture question and mindsets in the organization during a turnaround project, which is pretty key for the success.
But Christian and Perola, you have been working with turnaround cases for many years and are very experienced, and you have some cases that you can share some examples from. Should we start with you, Perola?
Yes,
cases from the real world.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. Yeah, this is a Swedish. This is an example. Please ask questions through the chat to Charlotte when I speak. So, a Swedish medtech company. They have been around for more than 20 years. They operate with both hardware and software products in the medtech area, obviously, and that market is really growing. And the major shareholder of the company was really active out in the market. He was visiting exhibitions and trade shows and talking to customers and getting increasingly frustrated because everyone he talked to said, you have really great products and we really, really like your products. They really improve the operations we do, really good benefits for our patients. So very well-liked products. Still, the company was showing negative profitability and they had been declining in revenue for the past 5 to 8 years. And at the same time, when he went out there, he also saw that other companies are actually overtaking them in the market. Still well-liked products. So what do you do? And the board had tried then. They have changed CEOs 2 or 3 times, but that didn't really solve the problem. So the board then was really, really frustrated. What is going wrong here? Well-liked product, everyone likes us. We are not profitable and we are not gaining market share. We are losing market share. So they brought Spark in and we did a full transformation project. And when you're in a company that has been around for quite some time, you know that it's not an easy fix. It's probably something that really goes through sort of every part of the company. And that proved to be the case here. So we use our product-led transformation process where we really follow the product and we have this product success in mind. Everyone should understand what builds product success. So we follow that all the way from sourcing and R&D through the whole organization to the salespeople and marketing people. How do everyone contribute to the product success? So that's sort of one answer to the question on it's all about people. Everyone needs to understand how they contribute continuously, day by day, hour by hour, and year by year. So a couple of examples here, not to be too long, is that, for instance, the sourcing people, they didn't really know how they contributed to the product success. So every year they renegotiated contracts with the vendors, but they didn't have the mental or enough power to really squeeze the price or know exactly which parts they should negotiate on. They just sort of did their job. Same pricing was neglected. They didn't follow up pricing. This is a medtech company and they have sensors, etc., that need to be changed after every patient. So it's quite a lot of volume that goes through the company. So pricing really hits bottom line if you're wrong on pricing. They didn't really look at that in the right way. They didn't update. Still, they did their job. Then between the various units, it was the same thing. The bonus system for the salespeople only supported to make more sales, but without looking at where are we profitable in the actual product portfolio. And these were long-term contracts, so they gave discounts in the wrong areas that really hurt the company. The IT operations, another part which is critical in medtech, yes, good job. They had really good quality, well-liked, certified, everything, but they didn't understand what are the key costs in the operations and what happens in the market if you have an IT operations moving to a SaaS pricing. So they were totally wrong in the setup. So we went through together with the people through the whole company so everyone understands how they contribute, which means then that now they are profitable in their operations. Then another thing we also did was look at their partner strategy, because that didn't really work well either, but with them, and now they themselves take responsibility for that, so they understand where they sit in the ecosystem, what's their key strengths, which are the partners they should look for. And when we started the project, I don't mention the share price, but after we finished and a couple of months later, they had increased share price by 300%. So from the major shareholder and the board, it was a huge investment success bringing us in.
Yeah. But it's so interesting because the right hand didn't really know what the left hand was doing, and everyone was working in their own little cocoon, doing the best job they could out of the scope or that they could see and understand. So what you actually did, it was going through the whole company, make everyone shift their focus and just feel they're part of a team. And I think, if the easy fix here would be to try to fix one area only, but the key to success was obviously, going through the whole company.
Yeah, and at the same time, I'm looking at you, Charlotte. I'm also looking at the chat here, and there are a couple of questions here. And I think one question is that how did you get everyone on the same page? And this is really the trick between bringing us in or changing the CEO, because we come in from an outside-in perspective, and we actually ask these sometimes tricky questions. Some questions may be, I wouldn't say offensive, but you really question how are things really handled in the company. At the same time, you really look at this product success. So you have this, okay, we can be better. There are things, oh, now I know where I can improve. It may sound stupid here. Well, why didn't you know that before? But in older companies, it is sort of, the writing on the wall or these things, and being a CEO, it's hard to change this because you actually should run the company, but having all these detailed questions to really find out what does not work between the various sub-managers, that's really difficult. That's where you need a team to come in and look at this.
Yeah, we have another question in the chat forum as well, which relates to culture and people in that regard. And I know, Christian, you will dig into that a bit later. So we're just holding on to that question a bit. But Christian, you also have an example from the real world that you want to share.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. I will focus more on the marketing and sales side of a turnaround and what you could expect to see for results from that kind of project. And in my case, there was a company with the new chairman, and after being with the company some months, quite many months actually, he still was asking himself, who is this company and what does it stand for and what the value is that it brings to the market. And actually, he didn't see the company DNA. He couldn't understand it. And at the same time, the market was growing pretty rapidly, but they couldn't see any real sales development within the company. And another thing was also that they couldn't see any competition in the market. They felt that they were pretty alone there. So we made an assessment, as we usually do, doing a turnaround project. And it showed that, yeah, the DNA was unclear. There were different opinions in the organizations regarding positioning, value propositions, and the value actually what you bring to the market. And the market definition was pretty weird. It was based on sort of wrong beliefs and presumptions and an inside-out view. And yeah, the picture of the ecosystem was unclear. The product delivery was okay, but the actual customer values were communicated in a way that was difficult for the customers to follow and understand. And as a last point here, there was different opinions about the customer journey and actually who the key decision makers were that you should address. So as a part of our turnaround process and looking at the sales and marketing operations, we looked again at the ecosystem, and we redefined it and actually took a customer point of view and how customers look at the market. And that's pretty interesting. For many companies look at the market from their point of view instead of asking how customers see the market. And that revealed and highlighted the actual competition they had in the market. And for sure, there was competition. We also analyzed the customer journey and found that there were two key customer groups that you should address to get the deals. And they have actually looked at just one group before. And based on this analysis, we then did some customer studies and also looked at the relevant competitors' offerings. And that made us possible to transform the product values to really attractive customer value propositions. And all this together made it easier for the company, of course, to compete and fight for market shares in the market and increase the sales in line with the rest of the market.
Yeah. No, it's really interesting the way that I think it's quite common that you know your business so well, and then you just assume that everyone knows what you're offering. And what you're saying, the inside out approach rather than the outside and in, which also is a huge responsibility, I feel, on a strategic level from the board as well, just to keep an eye on the environment and what is competition doing, how is our customer base, are they changing their behavior, and that is it's like a whole scope. Yeah.
And actually understanding what tools customers are using to solve their problems, and usually they may differ a lot of the tools that you think that they use. Yeah. And especially if you look at this was a software company, and many times Microsoft, Office 365 and Excel is the thing that you compete with instead of some highly sophisticated software platform. So it's important to understand that.
Yeah, we have some questions in the chat forum here. One question is, how did you get everyone on board? Did you use some kind of business canvas model?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So we have our specialized approach, and we call it the product-led transformation. And it does work throughout the entire company. But in the very beginning, it's very important, and I'll talk about this later, that we have everybody on board and work through the process of buy-in, starting with the chairperson, the largest shareholder, then working in with the management team, and really understanding why we're there, what we're going to do, how the process works, who's responsible for what, and really making sure that everybody is aligned and really has buy-in to the process. So it's a particular, it's a particular way that we approach doing turnarounds.
We have another question from the chat forum. So how do you help the company not, going back to to old habits?
Yeah, well, of course, I mean, a turnaround is not successful if it's not sustainable. And what we do is bring in new habits and ways of working in a company. For instance, we have peer reviews. where we'll make decisions and a particular person is responsible for collecting the data and coming up with a decision. And then we have a peer review. That person presents it to the other groups who are touching that decision, and they get to vet the decision, and everybody gets to contribute, and then it's done, it's posted, and it's sealed and delivered. So that's one of the tools that we have that we bring in to help the organ. And every company is different. But you've got to embed these tools and these ways of working. And I think also once people start to feel that it's time now that everybody come together and make improvements in the company, the energy really starts to ramp up.
It's like trying to lose weight. It's really hard in the beginning, but when you start to see those small, signs of success, your clothes fit better, then you get the energy to keep going, right?
Absolutely. It's all about weight loss.
Yeah, but going back to Christian and Parola, with your experience, I guess you have come across certain pitfalls that is most common. Could you share a few of them with us so we know what to watch out for, Christian?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you heard about these two cases and they were really successful. But of course, there are, we have done many successful ones, but there are also a lot of learnings during the years. We would like to mention some of the pitfalls that you want to avoid. And actually, the first one, the lack of a clearly defined unified purpose is actually key here. And as in any change process, it's also vital for a turnaround project that you have a clearly defined need and a goal for the project. And this will also be an important part, getting everybody on board and staying on board, motivated. And this may seem very obvious, but many companies put too little effort defining and communicating the reasons behind the turnaround project, and actually pointing out the effects that it has on the organization, the benefits of it. So that's one, the lack of clearly defined unified purpose. That should be done. The other one, which is a very common pitfall and one of the primary reasons that turnarounds fail is because leaders don't focus enough on the changing the company culture and mindsets, and really addressing these things that they have to be changed if you want to see some significant change in the turnaround project. Because if you think and act as you've done before or in the past, there will be no sustainable change in the company. So culture and mindset are key things to work with.
Changing a company culture is really, really tough.
Yeah, that's true. And even, but I agree fully, but keeping the discussion going about the sort of the key values in a company, instead of just having them on the wall or some in some document, you should work with them all the time. And also in a turnaround process, discuss about how does these values that we have today, do they fit in this new situation that we're going for? And the third one I would like to mention is the engagement from stakeholders and sponsors. And that again is a key thing of keeping people motivated and doing things in the right direction. And we have seen surprisingly often that key stakeholders show a strong engagement in the beginning of a project, but then gradually they focus on other things. People have a lot of things on their plate, but anyway, they should keep on and really stick to the support that they show in a change turnaround project.
Could you define what you mean about stakeholders in this regard?
Well, it can be a larger shareholder or the chairman of the company, the person that actually, it can also be the CEO if the CEO is in a role that he's in the driving seat and really pushing forward the turnaround in the company.
And then start to tire and wear off.
And the thing is that you keep a high interest level ongoing and really stay engaged the whole process always to the end. So that's a key thing. I think Per-Ola has some points
Yeah.
he would like to mention as well.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Christian. Yeah, one key thing here is that the focus on change is too narrow. And in my example, and also in Christian's example, when you see that you have well-liked products, or in Christian's case, you don't really know what is the company about, what's the core strategy of the company. You cannot just address one thing, for instance, sales, or let's have more efficient R&D, or whatever sort of floats your boat, because in the last discussion in the board, we realized that customers were complaining about this. Okay, let's fix this. So in these cases, you really need to address the whole company. Another telltale sign there is that, well, we increase sales, but the margin of the company, the EBITDA, actually doesn't increase, or actually goes down. Well, something is definitely wrong in the total engine of the company. So we need to have a full scope of the change, not just a point action here and there. Another one, and this is coming back to what Christian said, is really you need to have all the leaders in this are aligned. And this is an English word, aligned. You need to be in it with your heart. You cannot just say, yep, I'm an R&D manager, I'm fully behind this, but then you go back and protect your team, which is really one thing you should do in R&D. You should protect your team so they can do what they are supposed to do. But if no one is really defining what they are supposed to do that really adds to the product success, it doesn't really work. So therefore, every leader must really be in it with their heart. And that is a lot of workshops and exercises and whiteboard and really challenge. And that is a key then, that the stakeholders that Christian mentioned are also on board there, so you can sort of guide when we set up the transformation project.
Let me just quickly jump in there, because I know what you're literally saying is that you need to walk the talk. You need to have full buy-in with your heart and your soul. But it's also important to be aware when you are, for instance, a CEO or if you're a board member, during the change process, there's a lot of uncertainty also within the staff and within the community, which makes it, you are always on stage. I remember when I was CEO of a company where we did some big changes, and I could just tell if I had a crappy night or whatever, I couldn't be like tired and walk into the office like this, because then everyone else would be scared, like, oh, she looks grumpy today, maybe there are layoffs coming. So you constantly had to think about how you presented yourself, because everyone was like analyzing everything, because they were a bit scared, at the same time. Little anecdote, which is interesting.
Of course, but in the end, I think if you're trying, that's just my personal, if you really are grumpy, try not to show it. But on the other hand, if you do show it, well, make an excuse as well. Sorry, this is not about this. My kids didn't sleep the whole night, whatever, because we are all humans. So except Elon Musk and Steve Jobs and these other guys. But in us normal people, we are humans. I don't know if you want to pitch in anything here, Beth, or.
No, I think that's clear. Okay. But you had some other pitfalls, I think.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And that's the final one, which is also our what do you say? The icing of the cake or whatever. You really need, that's our mantra. Everyone needs to understand product success and how they contribute. If you don't, and it can be difficult if you're just sitting processing invoices or whatever, how on earth do I contribute? Well, if they are late, or you get warranty claims, or get people more engaged in the loop, and that's sort of our mantra, and it has proven to be really successful. So bring people, the engagement in there everywhere, so everyone understands. And this really stupid, but I think really good example. if you cannot explain to your children what your job is, then maybe let's ask someone, how do I contribute to the product success, and get that, so you can actually go home and explain, I actually do this and I'm quite good at it.
Excellent. No, because when I listen to you guys talking so much about the product, and I just think that, but that just makes so much sense. But still, you know, I've heard and been in discussions and situations where everything has been about everything else but the product. But if we don't have the product, we don't have a company, we don't have a purpose. And
Exactly.
so it just makes so much sense. It's like, hey, why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's good. And Per-Ola, you have also, no, sorry. No, that was Per-Ola. That was the last pitfalls.
That's me, yes.
So, yeah, so turning to Beth then, success factors.
Yeah. So every company has their view of turnarounds and what are the success factors. BCG has theirs, McKinsey has theirs. And the guys talked about the pitfalls and also explained a little bit about the success factors. But let me run through ours very quickly. This is how we see transformations. First and foremost is the unified purpose that Christian mentioned. You really must have a common understanding and buy-in to the turnaround and why you're doing this. Also, we recommend number 2 is a thorough assessment of the current situation of the company. Very important. Number 3 is that all functions must be involved. Number 4 is the product success, which is how we think about tech companies. And the 5th part is also recognizing that product management function is a key role in the transformation of a company. All of our backgrounds are from Silicon Valley, and product management is a very, very key role in tech companies. So we see that as a key way to develop that role within a company. And then lastly, it's really to have the shoulder to shoulder approach. Everybody's in there together. It's hard work, and everybody's got to roll up their sleeves and contribute.
So, I mean, the members that are listening and watching us today are company owners, and they sit on various boards. So before we wrap up, are there any tools that you can give us in order to get started?
Yeah. So as we talked about earlier, it's really tough from a board position. But if you're getting a sense that there needs to be a turnaround within the company, I would first of all make sure that the board agrees that everybody has the same view about the state of the company that they see. It's not progressing and so forth. And then if the question is, the company is ready for a change, okay, great. I would have the chairman sit down with the CEO and really synchronize on how they see the company and where they want the company to go so that their goals are aligned and similar. And then I would ask that the chairman ask the CEO for a plan. What's the plan to turn around the company? And this gives the CEO an opportunity at least to level set, to sit back, reflect what does need to change in the company. And that plan really has to come with what are the issues and what are the steps within each group. So as a board, I would give the CEO an opportunity to come up with a plan. And if you feel that plan just isn't satisfactory, then I would reach out for help to give the CEO assistance. Yeah. And I also recommend don't let too much time go by, because the team underneath knows something has to change. The team underneath is being held back. And the faster you can get the minds in the company thinking, we've got to change, we've got to do something, bring in support, the faster you'll get results. And literally, some of our projects have been 6 months, and they have been tremendous in the change that it's brought to the company.
Yeah, we have a question actually from the chat forum here. Do you go back and get like a receipt on how well you have managed the turnaround process? Do you keep in contact with the companies?
We do. We actually have one coming up. so yeah, we do. We like to go back and check in with companies, because that also, we feel then if we've succeeded or not, that sustainable aspect. But yes, it's a part of our model.
Yeah, so just to wrap it up, I mean, since it's the owners that ultimately decide, what they want for the company, that they give clear instructions to the board, that then have the possibility to point out the strategic way to move forward. And since a lot of the pitfalls was that it was not properly aligned and thought through, that's something that you guys on the sitting on boards out there need to really start narrowing down into a plan. And obviously the CEO is more than a full-time job already, so just so you know, there are help that you can get in order to get this process started. And another key point is that don't think too narrow, don't think too small, don't think that it's just something in one division that needs to be fixed, because I guess what we've learned today is that everything is linked, and if you change something here, maybe there is a benefit here, but if they don't talk to each other, how would you know, and how would you actually make that shift happen? So thank you so much, Beth, Christian, Per-Ola. It's been a really interesting session. Thank you for sharing your experiences and thoughts with us. And for the rest of you, I guess, see you around. The next Morning Sofa is in a month's time from now. So have a great day, everyone. Bye.